When David 0.
Uh-oh, he's touching the gavel.
It's there.
Everyone brace yourself.
All right.
Good evening. Time being 6 o'clock, I will call to order the Board of Supervisors regular meeting today for Tuesday, February 4th, 2025 to order. At this time, I ask if you would please rise as you're able and remove your hats for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I will recognize the Assistant Township Manager for the meeting procedures and roll call.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the members of the board, staff, and public for joining us this evening for the February 4th regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you are in attendance virtually using the WebEx platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chairperson calls on you. If you are attending in person with us in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on. Prior to commencing the meeting, I have a few short procedural items to cover. First, members of the public attending using the WebEx platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for their question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that the minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. Finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the WebEx meeting platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Ms. Strickland.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Mr. Heller.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Next up, item 2, announcements and proclamations. So this evening, we have a proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, to recognize February as Black History Month. And trying to think, was I to present this, or did you have any opening remarks? Okay. With no opening remarks, we do have the proclamation. I will open the floor if any board members wanted to read the proclamation, or I can read the proclamation.
Mr. Chair, I guess I can read it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, anyone is welcome to read the proclamation.
All right, proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, to recognize February as Black History Month. Whereas Ferguson Township is dedicated to celebrating diversity and creating an inclusive, welcoming environment for all members of the community. Whereas Black History Month is observed annually to acknowledge the struggles and profound injustices endured by African Americans throughout history, while also honoring their achievements and significant contributions in areas such as economics, culture, spirituality, science, law, and politics. Whereas the celebration of Black History Month started in 1926 from the work of Carter G. Woodson, a noted African American historian, scholar, educator, and publisher. And whereas in 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month, and every U.S. president since then has continued to designate February as a time to honor and celebrate the significance of this month-long observance. Whereas each year, Black History Month is centered around an endorsed theme. The theme for 2025, African Americans and Labor, focuses on the important role work has played in shaping the experiences of Black people throughout history. Whereas this theme highlights the crucial impact of Black labor, both historically and today, in shaping Black communities and the broader society. It recognizes not only paid work in factories, the military, government, and other sectors, but also the contributions of social justice activists, volunteers, and those involved in building institutions within community groups and social organizations. Whereas it is important that we recognize the dedication, tenacity, and resilience exhibited by Black Americans to shape the Ferguson Township community for the better. And now, therefore, the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors is hereby designate February 2025 as Black History Month. We call upon public officials, educators, and residents of our township to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities, and recognize the tremendous contributions of the Black and African American community. Proclaim this 4th day of 2025, Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors.
All right, thank you. I was going to say, I think we'll entertain a motion to adopt the proclamation and open the floor up if anyone had any remarks, both from the board as well as publicly.
This is Matt, so moved.
All right,
This is Patty, I'll second.
all right. Any board members have any remarks they wanted to add, or?
Yes. I think the only thing I'd like to add is that sometimes there's this kind of need to segment American history from Black American history. It's all American history. And we all need to recognize that there were contributions from folks of all shapes and sizes, but there were times when there were folks that were disincluded from society that made contributions and their history was sought to be erased. So I appreciate that this township, this leadership is kind of continually making the effort and the impact to recognize American history, and specifically from those that were left out in the past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was really well said.
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other board members?
Exclamation point.
Thank you.
Just opening up the floor, did any members of the public have any remarks that they wanted to make? Anyone's welcome to step forward. Anyone online? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor of adopting the proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right. I will sign the proclamation. Proclamation is now adopted. Item 3, public comment. At this time, I'll entertain any public comment. We'll start first in the room. If you can come forward to the podium, state your name and neighborhood of residence, and let us know what you want to speak of.
I reside in Ferguson Township on Harris Street in Overlook Heights. I wanted to talk to you about ADUs, accessory dwelling units. ADUs are accessory dwelling units. It's a secondary house that's located on a lot that already has a house. Sometimes they're called granny flats or in-law suites. If the structure lasts about 20 to 30 years, that means that every 20 to 30 years, new roads, sewage lines, water lines all need heavy maintenance or they need to be replaced. Where does this money come from? The township? One way is to increase the amount of private investment into a community. But how do you do that with already an established neighborhood with built houses? One way is ADUs. I used Google Maps to measure the area of my neighborhood, Overlook Heights. It's sort of near the Waffle Shop on North Atherton, across the street from the Giant. So using the Google Maps measuring tool, I measured it's a little more than 90 acres. So assuming that the lots are 1/3 acre, I know some are 1/3, some are 1/4, that's 270 lots. So you can imagine that's an opportunity for 270 new houses, for more housing for everyone. This would increase the maximum number of houses in the neighborhood, allowing families to stay together, intergenerational housing, allow for people to build ADUs to help possibly pay off their mortgage. This would increase the township tax revenue and increase private investment into existing neighborhoods. I ask that you consider adopting language in your zoning to allow ADUs in residential zoning.
Thank you. Going online, do we have anyone online that would like to address the board? Seeing none, I'll do another check of the room. Anyone in the room wanted to address the board?
None of our guests?
I was going to say we do have a lot of guests tonight. I believe got a bunch of Cub Scouts from Pack 44.
Yep, Pack
Sorry, I
44
was
in
thinking
Pineville Hills.
back to my Scout troop.
See, I did that earlier.
We were, yeah. So definitely welcome everyone in attendance tonight, whether you're joining us in the room or online. So thank you for joining us tonight. If there's no further public comment, we'll move over to item 4, the approval of the minutes, which were which were sent out to the board on Friday. Pending no corrections or modifications to the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
And this is Patty, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Isomari, second.
All right. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Minutes have been adopted. Item 5, reports and presentations. Our diversity, equity, and inclusionary activities and acknowledgements. February is Black History Month. Ramadan will begin on February 28th, and President's Day is February 17th. Next up, we have a presentation from CenterSafe, which will be presented by Ms. Jennifer Penneck. I believe I got that right. Close. Sorry. Feel free to step forward. Yep. Pensick.
Pensick. But it was really close. And I would tell Martha one time, ask for Mrs. Pancake, and I said, that one I cannot respond to. I tend to respond to all other ones, but you're good. Hi, everyone. So my name is Jennifer Pensick, and I'm the Executive Director of CenterSafe. Some of you may know CenterSafe as the Center County Women's Resource Center. We've actually been a fixture in the Center County community since way back when, in 1975. So 2025 is a really big anniversary for us. It's our 50th anniversary, which is something we're quite happy about. It's not, very easy for nonprofits to make it 50 years, so we're really hoping we get to do another 50 years after this as well. Center Safe is really Center County's go-to resource center for anyone who's been affected by things like domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking. For those of you wondering, well, how many does that really affect? We always say that there's this bubble around Happy Valley, right? But there's a lot that happens inside the, bubble as well. So on average, we support probably at least 900 survivors of domestic violence, another 200 or so survivors of sexual assault, and probably another 200 or so individuals and families who need some form of shelter or housing during the year. Our clients range in age from itty-bitty babies to the elderly, people from all, identities, backgrounds, lived experiences. And so I just wanted to kind of take time tonight just to kind of highlight Center Safe and make sure that people were aware of this organization in our, Center County community. And just knowing that there's always help available for people. So in terms of the services that we provide, it's everything from emergency shelter and housing to counseling, advocacy services. We actually have a 24/7 hotline. We get called out to the hospitals at all hours. So if someone unfortunately has been assaulted and they need an advocate with them, we're actually part of every sexual assault response team. So anytime a victim goes to the hospital, we get paged out for them. We have free legal services. We provide outreach and education, really any type of service that you can imagine someone who's been through something really traumatic needing. We work really, really hard to be able to provide, including our Child Access Center, which is in Bellefonte, and that's where people go for supervised visitation or safe custody exchanges. The goal really is that we get to work ourselves out of a job, and we're not needed as much as we are, but unfortunately we're not anywhere, close to that. So again, I just wanted to kind of take some time, make sure that people knew about this really important resource. It really is for everyone and anyone, and people can learn more at centersafe.org. And I will take this opportunity to highlight our hotline, because again, it's 24/7, so it's 877-234-5050. That's everything that I was going to share, but I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have about Center Safe.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I just have a question. Do you sort of keep track of the number of people you serve? So
Oh,
your
absolutely.
have your numbers gone up or has remained steady? Or?
It really varies year to year. I would say, if anything, we see an uptick in domestic violence for sure, especially during certain times of year. So I think, especially during the holidays, you'll see an uptick. But they've kind of been on trend, for lack of a better term, but I think if any number goes up, it tends to be domestic violence.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No questions, but just want to say thank you for the work that you do for the community, the folks using the resources, families, individuals. Truly, it's inspiring. And I wish there were more folks like you, staff, volunteers, to really step forward in the community that needs it. It's not an easy subject to talk about in anything that's done there, but it's something that it happens, all of it. And I just want to again say thank you. Sincerely,
Thank you. I appreciate
it.
that. Thank you.
I'll just agree with that. Thanks very much for the information, for just reminding us that the resource exists, and in particular, I think highlighting the safe custody exchange location and visitation locations that you offer. I think that's a really invaluable resource that you're providing there. So thanks again.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and I would echo those thanks as well. Also, thanks to the volunteers and even those that do support the organization. Looks like you do have plenty of opportunities, whether that's volunteering or donations, that everyone can get involved.
Absolutely. Oh, there's always opportunities to get
Right.
involved. You'll never see me say, no, we don't have a need. We always have a need, so.
Anyone else have anything?
I know I'm not supposed to speak for the whole board, but I'll just say it anyway. Let us know how we can help.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I will not be shy.
I apologize, ma'am. I had to step up for just a moment, had a small fire to put out. But any commentary you can give on just like federal landscape and how things federally may or may not impact Center Safe?
Great question. It's been an interesting time. So Center Safe is funded through a variety of different ways. So we receive local, state, and federal grants, as well as just the amazing support of our community. So with just issues that have been floating around regarding federal funding, knock on wood, Center Safe is solid. And we'll just kind of navigate the landscape as it comes down. But right now, Center Safe is strong, and while we do receive federal funding, we're incredibly responsible with our, funding. There's nothing that we are necessarily, concerned about, but we're always keeping an eye on what's, going on, and we always have Plan B, and then we have backup plans to the backup plans to the backup plans. So, as anyone who, runs an organization has to do. But certainly it can be concerning when there's just issues with any sort of funding source for any organization. But Center Safe is handling it responsibly, and that's why though we always echo just threads of connection for people. So whether it's on the local level, state level, national level, we always encourage people just to get involved as much as they can. Whether it's giving their time, talents, or treasure. It could be someone volunteering at a tabling event. It could be someone donating $20. It could be someone donating $20,000, whatever that might be. It could be just someone, using their social media for good and just share links, spread the word. When people are having conversations, think about how you're framing those conversations around these issues. There's lots of things that we can all do, no matter what is happening on the national scale or even state scale. There's always things that we can do, locally. And, we always have power to do the things that we can do and the things that we can, control. So I'm always echoing to people, you can't control everything, but you can control certain things. So focusing on what you can control. And for me, that's sharing information about Center Safe and, keeping that light shining bright for people and just making sure that people know that anyone can access our resources 24/7.
Full disclosure, I give my time, talent, and treasure to Center Safe.
Any other remarks? See none, I thank you so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
tonight. It was great report.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Next up, item 5.3A, the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority report. Is our Parks and Recreation Authority rep here? If not, the report is included in the packet, and I can take any questions from we can at least take notes if any board members had questions or items of follow-up, and we can pass those on to our rep.
I just wanted to say that I watched the last authority meeting, and I think Corey did an amazing job of representing sort of our concerns. So I would encourage you all to, if you have a few minutes, to watch that. And I think my only question is for some process things that I just want to be sure that we at the township are giving Corey everything he needs, like from our Parks Committee, or if, I know that Two Deck Park is sort of an outlier in our parks and has another sort of committee, and making sure that all that information is getting fed to Corey, because it is all about communication, and I want to make sure that that is all being given to him. And then I think the other thing I would just want to follow up with Corey, and I can try and reach out to him myself, but if it come through our channels too, there had been talk about the authority and, as I'm on the governance committee and we're working through things, I think what we all determine we need is money, right? And where does that money come from? And there had been talk about starting a sort of a foundation. And I'd be curious to know if there had been any steps from the authority about starting a foundation, or has it just been, thoughts. But if there's been any actionable steps being taken towards that, I'd be curious to know.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to ask that question and report back to the board.
Nobody has anything else?
Well, I guess the only other
Yes.
comment would be on the Hess restrooms. And
Yes.
so we'll need to have a discussion on that, as they're considering those different options between the authority, facilities committee, finance committee. So we'll probably need to take that up here as we
Yeah.
see some decision-making down the road, but at least to provide Corey with the guidance that he needs. I see, he had to kind of speak about it, and we hadn't spoken about it yet, so I think probably sooner rather than later. And it seems like he was agreeing with, probably what I was interested in seeing pursued when I sat in at the finance committee, those luxury trailers. But, there's 4 different options, so.
And that was sort of the interesting thing about that, is that in that meeting, the authority actually didn't make a recommendation. So of the 4 committees in COG that had been given the presentation, apparently only 1 had made a recommendation, and the others didn't. And so it was curious, because at the beginning of that meeting of the Parks Authority, an authority member had actually said they wanted to refer the Hess bathroom and boardwalk funding to the Parks Capital Committee. And, but then further on in the conversation, it was strange discussion about, well, we don't actually, the Parks Capital Committee is meeting jointly with the authority, but we don't set the agenda. So, there's a little bit of, like, needing to figure out if you want the Parks Capital Committee to come up with funding or figure out funding, A, that's not how the process works, but also B, like, if we don't set the agenda, how can we discuss it?
So I guess that's the question, is when do we need to be talking about this?
Exactly.
Right.
Where is the decision-making process
Right.
flowing?
Exactly.
So,
This is that communication thing that we need to work out.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to follow up on that just to make sure that we are, since it has been identified that that is a discussion for us to have, that we have that discussion ahead of when we're going into our respective committees, so that there is that full communication from us to COG to, and wherever else, so. Yep. Anyone else had anything of note on this? Seeing none, that would move us over to item 5.3B, which is our CNET report, which will be presented by Miss Leslie Lang. Looks like she is in attendance, so come on down.
I was gonna say, yeah, we need a big wheel now.
The price is right. It's a very brief report. The CNET director, Cindy Hahn, presented the annual programming report for 2024 for the 5-year period of 2020 to 2024. There was only a slight increase in the number of programs that was sponsored by the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors, the regular meetings, the special meetings, budgetary meetings, along with a few commission meetings. The good news is the online programming report showed advancement and increases with the number of viewers and hits. So Ferguson will be pleased to know that more people are watching the township supervisor meetings, the budget meeting, and the planning commission. And the board approved the overall rates for the increase proposed at 3.5% spread across 2025. And that will be determined whether or not we have full COTA participation. So the overall treasury report was healthy as well. That's it for the update. Any questions?
Questions? Mr. Heller?
I just want to say again, thank you, and also I just want to direct folks to the report that's in the agenda, because it does show those numbers for each of the meetings, and you can see 64, 83, 61, a lot of people that are clicking in or tuning in, then 96, a lot of good numbers there, so it's being used as a good resource, and I'm glad that we were able to contribute and keep everything going, so
And
thank you.
thank you all for taking part in the streaming options and the caption options, because that's really important to your viewership.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Gonna say thank you very much, Leslie. Great report, and yeah, a lot of people are watching us on YouTube. You can also watch us on CNET, virtually anywhere.
Thank you, and my other hat says thank you. I think you read the proclamation, which I missed earlier. I do have brief remarks. If you want to hear them, I can. If not, I'll leave them.
Feel free to go ahead.
The other community hat. So thank you, everybody. Leslie Lang, member of Ferguson Township for the last 18 years, so I'm proud to be here. And representing the campus community, Penn State, Forum on Black Affairs Humanitarian of 2023, and the Juneteenth Planning Committee for Center County. So it gave me great pleasure to know that our township was going to acknowledge the contributions and accomplishments of African Americans with the official proclamation, especially in view of all the White House demands that have been coming down and flowing through us and around us. Our campus theme this year is Change Continues with Us. Last year, the nation spoke to firsts in the arts, and this year's theme was African Americans in labor. I'd like to remind everybody and to point out that the White House itself was built on the labor of enslaved African Americans and free men in 1792. And in fact, the workforce of white laborers and immigrants from Ireland, Scotland, and other European nations actually dominated and documented by our national archives have validated that. I will skip the Bureau of Statistics for you this evening. I did want to say that the enslaved workers from the 19th century in agriculture and industrial and professional workers, all into the 20th and 21st centuries, African Americans have always played a vital part in the American workforce. I know that you mentioned the significance in areas of economics, culture, spirituality, science, law, and politics, and that the proclamation also acknowledges the role of work. And in the broader sense, the black workers of Pennsylvania were involved in many labor movements, including the iron industry and 3 centuries worth. Today are 5 black-led labor unions paving the way, and Philadelphia is leading the fight to diversify more than 50 construction labor unions. I'm just going to highlight one black woman in particular, played an enormous role in the movement of the legacy and development. Mary McLeod Bethune, who in 1904, with $1.50 and 5 young students, started the school for black girls in Florida that is today's Bethune-Cookman University in Florida. She was also appointed by the White House by President Roosevelt as a member of the Black Cabinet for the New Deal. And her lasting heritage encourages us with goodwill and courage for each of the next generations. Racial justice and economic justice are intrinsically intertwined, and I'm going to leave you with just her words. I leave you with love. I leave you with hope. I leave you with the challenge of developing confidence in one another. I leave you with a thirst for education. I leave you a respect for the use of power. I leave you with faith. I leave you with racial dignity. I leave you a desire to live harmoniously with your fellow man, and I leave you finally with the responsibility to all of our young people. So thank you for making that Black History, African American History proclamation tonight. It means a lot to us, and the change continues with all of us. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, and thank you for all that you're doing as well. All right. That will move us over to item 53C, which is our Planning Commission's annual report, and we'll recognize Rob Cressweiler of our Planning Commission.
Thank you, Jeremy. For those of you, we did have there's a preliminary, there's still one error in there I found. But we'll talk about that. But what we covered this last year, we've looked at basically approved 6 ordinance. Let me get this get closer. You need to have sunlight or light on the podium as well.
Oh, you can give phone flashlight if you'd like.
I got that too, but I'm not going to fool with that. All right, thank you. We approved 6 ordinance amendments and changes, of which 2 were new and included an ordinance that allowed beekeeping on residential lots, which I'm sorry the Cub Scouts left, because I would have thought that would have been something they would have liked to have known about, beekeeping. The other was remove the regulations on window signs and remove the annual sign renewal fee. As far as approved two conditional use applicants, one on West College Avenue for the former golf cart facility, golf storage facility. If you remember, that used to be a swimming pool, and before that, I thought it was a roller rink. I can't remember. Do you remember, Jeremy? At one time, I thought that was with a 1445 West College Martial Arts Stadium. It was. I know it was a pool at one time. I've been here long enough that I
Yeah, I
remember
don't
that.
recall the roller rink.
Okay, most recently, we did a conditional proof down here, 498 Meckley, for these, a new rental place. Now, as far as land development plans, we had one final land development plan, one preliminary land development plan, and 5 preliminary land development plans, one of which you're going to decide tonight on storage unit. We had 2 storage rental facilities on West College and 1 on Science Park Corridor. And I don't know if you all remember George Carlin, but did you ever see his comedy routine about stuff?
Yes.
And he said, how can we get more stuff? And I think that's why we've got so many darn storage units. People have got so many stuff. They just have more stuff to put stuff away in. So it's kind of interesting to get that. We're also in the continuing gas war, station wars for Center Region, where we approved the Rudders service station on West College and University. We also, Blue Course, I'm sorry. And we also, of course, we've got the sheets right over here. And now we also did looked at preliminary land plan for the Wawa. So we've got 3 of the big ones now. Now, the only thing to really put us in the big time is if we get a Buc-ee's.
Oh, jeez.
Anybody knows a Buc-ee's, what that's like? Those are huge. Buc-ee's has more, I went to visit my son down in Texas this year, and they have more, one station has more gas pumps than I think there are in the Center Region. In one, it's like 120 pumps. Okay, then lastly, we continued to see interest in development of mixed student housing. We had a preliminary land development for 1004 West College. Another student housing, let's say housing high-rise with stores below. We reviewed 8 modifications and/or waivers, mostly for a previously mentioned land development plan. So finally, I'll mention one thing, again, that's not in here. We're concerned as a planning commission about the low amount of housing permits, individual housing permits that have occurred in the last 4 years. If you look at those, starting back to 2021, there are 9, 15, 7, and only 4 this year. So it's only been that many houses, new houses built. One of the things we're concerned about, we've expressed, is we've got 2 subdivisions, the Landings and Fox Point, that basically, I think, I understand builders, it's become economically not viable to build that type of house or that style that way. And we think, we should maybe try and maybe do something imaginative, maybe meet with the builders and see if we can't do something, rekindle their interest in building, and maybe allowing them to adjust. I know they've got all the development plans, and I know that if we have to do that, if they have to redo it again, it's going to cost them money. And I don't know if there's not some way we can adjust that to allow them to reduce that fee, and just because it's just land, it's within the growth boundary, and so we want to stay within the growth boundary as opposed to going outside. And if we can get something set up with the builders, those 2 divisions, subdivisions specifically, to try and get something restart them or rekindled. So that's about all. Bill, I don't know if he had anything else you wanted to mention. Bill Keel? If you wanted to say, is there anything okay. I didn't mean for you to come out, you just said.
Well, they won't let me say it out here.
You got the.
Their rules.
It's been,
We added a chart to this that you did not see in the past, i.e. on page, yes, on page 9. We're going to start having that each year to give you a picture of where we are with regard to our whole permitting situation. Rob mentioned the housing starts. The other figure in that chart are the LPDs, or LDPs, land development plans. Typically, first comes a land development plan, and then that is followed by some kind of land change, whether it be structure, commercial, or whether it be residential. We really feel that we need to do something about upping our game with regard to land development plans and housing. It's all connected to our budget issue, and you guys have all struggled with the budget issue, but we need to be building at a much higher rate in Ferguson Township than we currently are in order to generate the kind of tax support dollars that we need to have going forward. That's going to take a team approach. I don't think you have all the right answers. I don't think the Planning Commission has all the right answers. I don't think staff has all the right answers. I think we need to sit down and we need to talk about what the challenges are and how to overcome them. And I really think that somehow we need to have that kind of collaboration. That's my personal opinion, being on the Planning Commission, but we find ourselves spinning our wheels sometimes over and over and over again on the same things and not getting some solutions. So I think the three bodies, staff, you, and the Planning Commission, need to have some work session meetings to try and figure out where we want to go and how we want to get there.
Thank you both for your remarks. Before we take questions, I wanted to just share. I think I had made a mistake. I was supposed to open up this item with recognizing our planning and zoning director. I apologize for not recognizing you, but I want to give you a chance to make any remarks or to add anything before we go into questions.
Oh, I appreciate that. I think it was well said. I was mostly going to do their introduction, but I am here to try to answer questions as well, and we also have our community planner in the audience. But thank you for recognizing me.
Yes, thank you. I apologize. I
No
felt bad
worries.
there.
It's okay.
Got carried away. So, if there's nothing further from Planning Commission or staff, we could take some board questions and remarks. Mr. Heller.
First thing, Rob, thank you. You took something that is very dry to some people and made it humorous. I don't know how you did that, but I appreciate that. And my house is nothing but a place to keep my stuff, to misquote George Carlin. But what I will say is, and I will attest to this on a Bible, I did not speak with either of these gentlemen in front of me or from what we heard earlier about the ADUs when I put out a request for future agenda items related to accessory dwelling units, to talk a little bit more about those, understand maybe some of the obstacles, challenges, etc. And another item related to the lands within the regional growth boundary, such as the planned residential development areas, the TTDs, as well as the R1 areas that have not been developed as of yet. So those have been requested, and I hope to see them on a future agenda. And again, I did not coordinate this with anybody. It just sometimes it works out that way.
I tried to get that, when you're supposed to stick your hand out when you're holding the door for me.
That was it. Thank you.
Welcome.
You guys didn't see it though.
Anyone else?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Well said from a board perspective, driving and asking for some of these things that come up. But I agree with you, Mr. Keough, but I think my slight disagreement is the individuals that are going to build are not on the commission, they're not on the board, and they're not in this building working every day. And so it takes all of those entities to get it done. But it starts with the person that has the land. They've got to submit a document saying, I want to go do, and then everybody can mobilize. We can't guess at this. So I think if there's some challenges that you've seen, if there's some, and I've only been in the seat for a year, if there's challenges that those that have been here longer than I have seen, if there's challenges that staff has seen, we've got to bring those to the table. And maybe it's this work session that you recommended, it's maybe in the next session. We've got to bring those challenges to the table, whether it's documentation, it's a period missing or a sentence missing, which that's what we're going to talk about later, that will then generate that next step. But I mean, I really appreciate you folks on the Planning Commission, all of you, I know you two are here, but the entire Planning Commission for the work that you've put in, because that's a thick packet of work. And when you take home you're looking at it, you got large plans, you come in to look at those things, that's a lot of work. And I just can't thank you enough for that work. And there's more, because Ferguson Township, I'll say it, said it once, I'll say it again, is open for business. And so when we make these changes that folks are saying, hey, this is a little off here, this sentence, this period, and we get the kind of hurdles out the way, maybe even rocks thrown in the road, when we get those out of the way, we're off to the races. We are open for business. Over.
I think that's true, yeah. I think that we realize that, it's just, that we see this, and we think you're right, we gotta do something to help. And, right, the building, that's why I said, we need to approach the people who have the building, or got permission to build, done, see if we can't help them tweak it. And, the big thing is it costs them money, and they've got control, and they've got a lot to do it, so they're gonna be economically viable. So I think that's the thing I'd like to see, and again, to keep it within, so we don't switch out into the farmland, things like that. We've got a lot of places we can still build.
Well, I think that's
Ms.
the
Strickland?
point. I think you'll see those land development plans naturally decrease as we're largely built out within our area of the regional growth boundary. So I'm hesitant to conflate some of these issues, the unfinished PRDs versus, undeveloped land versus our budget issues. So I wouldn't want to just say one thing is going to fix everything. Those are entirely separate issues. And so I think having Planning Commission, look at these numbers, I think that chart's really helpful, but I think those are entirely separate issues that we have to deal with and acknowledge that we'll have to, say with the budget, diversify some revenue generation, because you just can't keep building unless you want to go outside the regional growth boundary. And I don't see that as
I think the biggest
as a
advantage we
priority.
have is there's 4 of us that have been on the board. There's 2 now and then 2 former people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think,
we've been here long enough, we know the history of some of this.
yeah, exactly. And so I think, looking at something very specific like the unfinished PRDs, I think is important. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else on the board have anything? I would just thank you for your report, Rob. I must admit, you presented that a lot better than when I presented it like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know if I had that much humor, but it was very, very, very well put together. And let the Planning Commission know, I thank them for their service to our community, and I watch them. Not every night, but often I do chime
hope
in
you had
and
something
take a
to
look
do.
at it.
You got enough time spent, I don't know how much time spent as a supervisor, I know you gotta have some time with your wife and stuff.
Yes, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 5.4, COG and Regional Committee reports, and I will recognize our representative from the Facilities Committee.
That would be I. Thank you, sir. Facility committee, you'll see that in the report there. We met this morning. Great meeting. The new facilities coordinator is awesome. He puts, it's got some really good plans to help us understand kind of for each facility, for each asset under the current COG, what's happening and where it's going. They've got, at the, I think, general forum, they'll be presenting of here's where everything is, past projects, current projects, future projects. So really, really excited for that. That was kind of the main piece of the agenda. And so we'll, I think, going forward, we'll have some more discussions on Hess and the like, but that's my 2 cents on today's meeting.
So it's the facilities, what do they call it? Facilities condition assessment or something? Is that what he's doing?
That's separate. So he
Separate.
did like an overall kind of, here's where we are with the work that was planned for '24
Okay.
and where it is. So it's something that last year we did not have. It was a constant ask, like, hey, how's that thing going? But now everything that was in the CIP from 23 going for 424 is in this document. It's like a single document. It's got everything in it, or single presentation, where it is, what's complete, what's kind of not done, what's to be done. And so he's going to keep that same cadence for us as a body, so we understand where these dollars are going and are these projects done on time, on schedule, and budget. He said the word under budget several times, and I was like, really? What?
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Patterson, for your report. That will move us to item 6.1, a public hearing on an ordinance of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 26 Water, Part 1, Stormwater, Section 304, Calculation Methodologies, Paragraph 3A19. And with that, I will recognize the Township Engineer.
Jeremy, I think it'd take you longer to introduce it was, but it'd take me to talk about it. So, you recall I was here last month. We introduced it as a draft to get the board to authorize this public hearing. In essence, this is a revision to the stormwater ordinance, that one specific section that Jeremy referenced there for calculation methodologies, that in essence provides a minimum discharge value for a 5-year return storm, something that we added to the ordinance when we became consistent with the DEP model, but we overlooked adding this calculation to be consistent with the Spring Creek watershed plan. So that's basically it. That paragraph 19 in essence is exactly the same with the exception of the 5-year return period calculation for the minimum discharge calculation. Request the board take action to approve the ordinance amendment.
Well, this is a public hearing, so I was going to say before we open up the board discussion, I'll just check first in the room and then online. Does anyone from the public have any comments? Seeing none, any online? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed, and I will entertain a motion.
This is Matt. I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the ordinance amendment to Chapter 26, Part 1, Stormwater, Section 304, Calculation Methods.
This is Patty, I'll second.
All right, any discussion or questions for the engineer?
Yeah, just to recap, this was kind of you did the red lines from the state version to township version. This was it's called a human error.
Yeah,
of
oversight.
the
Basically, it was an oversight, correct?
Eyeballs didn't see it, we caught it, and we've made the change
It
here
actually
now.
is caught by a consultant. Hey, we're working on a project and we don't see a 5-year discharge calculation. What do we do? We'll get that fixed.
Copy that. So that's
Yeah.
humans
Those
overlook
responsible.
things, yeah, and so we're gonna fix it.
Yep.
Madam Manager, that's a regular practice, right? That we catch something,
Yes, it's an ongoing practice. We catch things sometimes within a few months, sometimes within a few years, and we will correct them as we see those observations.
excellent. And so this consultant, did they have any outstanding kind of work that they were having some issues with, or how did that work?
Project in the process right now.
Okay,
Yep. So
And-
with this amendment, they'll be able to include this in their calculations as they're working on the project.
okay. Are they including them anyway? They're just gonna
Well,
send
they
that?
couldn't have without this amendment being done. They
Oh.
would have been hand-tied for the 5-year storm.
Okay,
So this brings the 5-year consistent with the 1, 2, and 10 methodologies.
copy that. Did
Yep.
did that delay their project at all? Just
Not that I'm
curious.
aware of, no.
Okay.
No.
All right, awesome. So thank you for moving on this, or Madam Manager, for bringing it to the board. That's all for me.
Great. There's no further discussion. Thank Mr. Seibert, and I will recognize the manager to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. This is a roll call vote for ordinance 1107, Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes,
Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. It passes unanimously.
Thank you. Got item 7.1, the consent agenda, which includes the accept the grant easement from M&G Realty Incorporated, a donation request for Ferguson Township area senior citizens, another donation request for Center Safe, and a board member request on 2025 revenue consideration. If there is none of those items that any board members want to pull, I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Please pull the item C.
Okay, got a request for pulling item C. Anything else? We don't need a motion to pull an item. We'll take that one up separately. Okay.
this is Patty. I move that we approve consent agenda items A, B, and D.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second. Lisa.
Right. All those in favor of adopting items A, B, and D, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay. That will then move us to item 7.1C, donation request Center Safe.
No discussion necessary. I donate time, talent, and treasure to Center Safe, so just to be fully transparent and recuse myself from that item.
Okay.
All right, this is Patty. I move that we approve consent agenda item C.
This is Matt, I'll second.
Right? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay. Mr. Patterson has recused himself. Next, item 7.2, a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania to approve the Strategic Management Planning Program Assessment and Recommendations Report. I will recognize the Township Manager.
Thank you, Chair. On June 20th of 2023, the Township Board of Supervisors approved the grant application submission to the Pennsylvania Department of Community Economic Development, also referred to as DCED, to participate in the Strategic Management Planning Program, also referred to as the STAMP. The Township was accepted into the STAMP program with matching grant funds to assess the Township's managerial, administrative, and financial capacity to create short and long-term financial, managerial, and economic development strategies. For a blueprint over the next 5 years. DCED and Strategic Solutions, in consultation with staff, conducted multiple different assessments outlined there in the narrative included in the agenda. Provided with the agenda packet is the DCED approved and final STAMP report prepared by Strategic Solutions. As part of the report, recommendations are presented to the Township for consideration. As the manager, I continue to meet with DCED to identify projects eligible for DCED funding in the current annual operating budget. So what does that mean? That as long as the board approves the report provided by Strategic Solutions and DCED, it allows for state funding to provide, to offset expenditures associated with eligible projects, including in this year. Now, they've spent most of their funds for their current fiscal budget year. However, I have a meeting tentatively scheduled with our caseworker, Lisa Burns, as well as, not our caseworker, excuse me, our representative with DCD, Lisa Burns, and Terry Kunkel. And we identify the projects that are currently in the operating budget to identify what we can put in for this fiscal year, and then also discuss what a phase 2 for the next fiscal year annual operating budget projects that are being recommended in the report, and also aligned with what we intend to execute in terms of the recommendations for phase 2. I'm happy to answer any questions, but the funding that the township remains eligible for is for 5 years at the date of the approved report. And for clarification, your approval of the report does not require necessarily that we execute these recommendations. It's that you're accepting these recommendations, through adopting the resolution. You're accepting that they're recommendations, but it doesn't hold you to executing them. We will take the recommendations and execute ones that we believe to align with what we believe to be best for the township.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing, so I will open up the public hearing. Any members in the room, residents in the room want to address the board? Seeing none, anyone online wanted to address the board? Seeing none, the public hearing I will declare closed, and we will go into board discussion.
If I may.
Yes,
yeah.
Mr. Heller.
No, I just want to say first, thank you to the manager and staff for really recognizing this as an opportunity to get involved with STAMP and DCED and really move things forward appropriately and help us better understand the goings-ons within the township and the community. So I appreciate that. My only question is just related to the resolution. The date says the 7th day of January 2025. Is that an issue or concern, or is that?
That is, initially, we had it tentatively on for the 7th, and thought about what 5 years from the date of adoption looks like, and how, coming back from the holidays and having, so we bumped it to February. So we can make that amendment as part of, we can acknowledge that typo and that amendment will be made as part of adoption of the resolution.
Just trying to buy us a month.
Thank
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just have it.
Yeah, it looks like where we're signing.
Yeah, this is-
Yeah, this is the one that I
Okay.
signed, so. Yeah, it looks like the copy provided me to sign tonight is updated.
Cool.
Any other board questions, discussion? If there is none other, I will recognize the manager to call the roll.
Actually, we didn't make a motion.
Oh.
I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the resolution. This is Patty.
Can we have a motion by Patty? Do we have a second?
This is Lisa, I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? Thank
Okay.
you.
This is a roll call, sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
This is a roll call vote for Resolution 2025-05. Ms. Stevens?
Yes?
Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have item 7.3, a discussion and authorization to advertise a public hearing on an amendment to an ordinance of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania for Chapter 27, Section 304, West College Neighborhood District. And with that, I will recognize the Planning and Zoning Director.
This is another situation where we caught something and we're bringing it back to you. As the title states, this is a request for authorization for a public hearing for the amendment to the ordinance, Chapter 27, Section 304. This is West College Neighborhood District. April 16th of 2024, Board of Supervisors adopted an ordinance that was the rewrite of what was previously the Terraced Streetscape District. It's now renamed, of course, to West College Neighborhood. This was the result of extensive public input, and it included updates to both chapters 27 and 22 as well. As part of this text amendment, there is a section that relates to residential use, particularly along the West College Street. And what was placed in front of you, both versions were in the packet. The online, what can be found was stated was multifamily and/or mixed-use structures located on lots that have frontage on West College neighborhood shall not be permitted to include dwelling units. That is what ended up in the code, and obviously that doesn't make sense and needs to be corrected. In reviewing this, we found that the intended language, which was also included in the original packet in the redlined version, states that the entire first floor of multifamily and/or mixed-use structures located on lots that have frontage on West College Avenue shall not be permitted to include dwelling units. So the issue is the clarification that it's the first floor that's being referred to. So the Board of Supervisors does need to formally act upon this update. So in order to do that, you would authorize the public hearing, and that would occur on March 4th.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'm happy to make the motion, and we can talk in the discussion more.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize advertisement of a public hearing to amend Chapter 27, Section 304, West College Neighborhood District at the March 4th, 2025 Board of Supervisors regular meeting.
And did we have a second?
This is Matt, I'll second.
Any discussion? If not,
Yeah, sorry, one small
Go ahead.
statement, and this is, there's example one. We had a stormwater miss 125, somebody's project was, it sounds like it wasn't a delay, but certainly they couldn't finish their work without that change. Exhibit B, there's a missed 4 words at the beginning of the sentence that likely would have impacted somebody executing something on their lot. So just more in my brain, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, we're making the right moves to make sure folks can execute plans throughout the township. We need to keep doing that. Over.
thank you. I do have a public comment, so I will entertain that if you want to come forward and.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. My name is Elliot Killian. I reside in Ferguson Township. It has been more than 10 years since my term of Township Supervisor has ended. At the time, I was excited to fund and promote sidewalks in the then terrace streetscape, now called the West College Neighborhood District. The board at the time dreamed of a vibrant downtown atmosphere where people walked, worked, and lived. Since then, little to no development has occurred. We need a new approach to this district. I'm happy you're reviewing this, however, I do not believe this is enough. We need more than simply changing the name of the district. We are nationally and locally in a housing crisis. 10 years ago, the most controversial idea in this district was that the buildings in this district with incentives could go up to 9 floors. That was reduced to 7 floors. What I'm going to ask for is 5 floors. I'm asking that you change the maximum height from 35 feet for the 3 floors to 55 feet or 5 floors. This will allow each building to have more housing, to house more people, and encourage private investment to build these buildings. Second, to allow first floor residential. Remote work and online shopping has reduced the need for commercial space. The Nittany Mall is struggling. The State College Borough requires first floor commercial, and many of these are vacant. With a vacant commercial space, you're asking the residents of the building to subsidize a vacant space. That increases the housing costs and rent for these residents. We are in critical need for housing. Make it easier to build housing. Third, incentivize developers to include amenities to residents of the building, focusing on amenities that would reduce the need for personal vehicles. This could include a vehicle rental like Zipcar, lockers for grocery store pickup, vending machines for convenience, vehicle logistic areas for rideshare pickup and drop-off, event space for socializing. You could incentivize these amenities by slightly reducing the parking requirements for the building, and this would also increase the amount of housing each building could provide. 4, allow more uses. Radically increase the list of allowed uses. This could include, that is not currently on the list, co-working space, live-work units, micro-manufacturing, bakeries, coffee roasting, 3D printing, wellness space, film theaters, bike repair, bike shops, game arcades, vehicle rentals such as Zipcar and e-bike rentals, schools, educational centers, urban rooftops, urban or rooftop greenhouses, and libraries. In summary, what am I suggesting? I'm suggesting to increase the maximum height to 5 floors. This is in line with human scale, which is part of the district. Allow residential use on the first floor, incentivize amenities for people living in the building so they don't need a personal vehicle, and allow more usage. What do you think this district will look like in 10 years? I can tell you, with little change to the zoning, it'll look exactly like it does today. You can take action to allow this development and to increase the development opportunities for this district. to become a vibrant, wonderful district our community dreams of. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other? Oh,
All
yes.
clarification.
Absolutely.
What we're requesting pertains to what's along West College. The line that's in the code right now, right underneath that, any mixed-use building not fronting West College Avenue must dedicate 50% on the first floor square footage of the building to non-residential uses. What that means is you can still, outside of that area, you can still have residential on the first floor. The intent is maybe there's an office, a gym, your mail room, some additional uses as well. So it's along that West College where the intent is that more intensive commercial at the pedestrian walkway. Just offer.
Thank you for that. I was gonna say, if nobody else had anything to add, I wanted to just throw out a last minute, if there was any further public comment, just make sure everyone had a chance to speak. And then if there is none, to go back to board discussion. Ms. Stevens.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say to Elliot, thank you for coming in and thank you for your comments about that. And I just wanted to address the 5-story thing. In the time that you were gone, we had so much public input on that. And it was very clear that the residents of that neighborhood, I mean, as you know, it butts right up to single-family homes. They were very strongly opposed to anything that would dwarf the sunlight. So that was something that we discussed and a lot. So thank you. I just wanted to make sure you understood that there was a lot of discussion about that.
Thank you. I'll just echo what Patty's saying. I appreciate public comment always, and just wanted to acknowledge what the planning and zoning director had said earlier. It was a 2-year process, and there was very, very much discussion. It was, all the meetings are very well attended by residents, and lots of different points of input to all kinds of different meetings on that. And just to acknowledge all that public engagement that had occurred during that time.
Anyone else have anything?
I think Mr. Keough raised his hand.
I did.
Okay. Mr. Keough's acknowledging it was good. Mr. Heller?
Yeah, I think this, for me, this really raises a larger question. So we changed something. Maybe it is, the numbers of units or, I'm sorry, just let me kind of expand the conversation a bit. When we think about these changes, I'm curious as to know more about what's the actual economic impact by making these changes. What do we anticipate? What is the truth of the decisions we've made already? Who's moved into? What's the revenue generated from some of the buildings that we've already seen going up in the area? I'd like to understand more about that and kind of dive deeper into it to then maybe help a strategic conversation about where we should be investing and what ordinances we do need to change, amend, etc., to make it better for the residents, folks that are interested in potentially moving here, but also support the township. And that's where I get lost. There's just not that chain of custody, that understanding between the ordinances and then the economic impact. So I think for me, that's really something I'll be digging into over the upcoming year, is to better understand that. And then also do some retrospective work. Okay, we made this, a building was built, what are we seeing from it? And have a deeper conversation in that. So again, I just wanted to share that perspective, as it will be something I'll be looking at over the upcoming years. Thank you.
And just to that point really quickly, I think using your arguments, what you're looking at doing, I think in an area like the TTD or the undeveloped components of the PRDs that we have now, I think is where I would support having that attention drawn at this point, I think.
Thank you. See, it's all coming together. Okay, I appreciate that.
Great. Any other board members? If not, I was gonna say we have a motion on the table, so, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no.
I'm sorry, did someone make that motion?
Oh, goodness.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Matt seconded.
Oh, perfect, okay, sorry.
See, you mess up once, Patty's gonna come after you.
No. I was reading the motion to see if, did I remember hearing that?
That's exactly what I was thinking too. I'm like sweating bullets over here. I just gotta say, Bill, did I ever screw up this bad on the planning commissioner's chair? The job is not as easy as it looks. All right, the motion does pass, and again, we were authorizing public hearings, so there will be opportunities for the public to engage, and the board to engage this later as well, so. Next up would be item 7.4, a discussion and authorization for advertisement of a public hearing on an amendment of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, Chapter 25, Trees, Part 1, Street and Park Trees, Section 110, Violations and Penalties, Paragraph 2. And with that, I will recognize the Township Arborist.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. Just wanted to bring forward a project that both myself, the Ferguson Township Tree Commission, and our previous Public Works Director worked on over several months. We're looking at proposing a handful of amendments to the current Chapter 25 Tree Code, specifically in the violations and penalties parts, looking to either soften the language or provide more opportunities, other avenues in regards to assessing fines and penalties. Just to give you a little bit of background on this, on our current tree code, it was adopted before there was a tree commission. It was adopted in 2014. The language was written by the Extension Forestry, Urban Forestry from Penn State, and the language, believe it or not, review other cities, townships, municipalities' language. It is almost verbatim. It's been taken, it's been shared, everybody's just put their tweaks on it, but it's a language that's very common. One of the things is, with Ferguson Township, when it came to the penalties and such, ours were by far the strictest, the most heavy-handed, and kind of looking to manipulate that a little bit, given the fact that specifically the cost to do business and things like that costs a little bit more to impose some of these penalties. They've actually grown astronomically, and I'll get into that in a bit. With that being said, I don't know if folks had an opportunity to look at some of the documentation. Section 110, paragraph 2, and basically covers the, somebody's illegally destroyed or removed a tree. We had just pretty much two options. The first option was imposing a penalty where you had to replace the cross-sectional area of the tree that was removed, illegally removed. So you just don't like trees, or got sick of cleaning your gutters, and you took a township tree, cut it down, deliberately. The penalty of it imposed in that would be the cross-sectional area of the tree. So just to give you an idea, imposing that, this cross-sectional area is about an 8-inch DBH diameter. Terms we use in forestry, diameter breast height, so it's the diameter of the tree at 4.5 feet approximately. And this one was about 8 inches. In order to replace this, it would be approximately 25 2-inch caliber trees. So simple removal of this tree in the right-of-way, the penalty would replace it with 25 2-inch trees to make up this cross-sectional area. Now, when the ordinance was written, that was, I could see that would have been reasonable, but at this point, the cost to do business, I'm finding personally, back when a 2-inch caliber tree planted and installed was $325, it's now escalated to, over $750. So cost of replacing this 25 trees is about $17,500 a penalty imposed, so it's very, very, very steep. So we're looking to eliminate some of that language right there and give us a bit of flexibility. I've researched, if you look in the bottom of the the document, the regional penalty examples. I scoured the state. Many of the municipalities, some are same size, some are larger, some smaller, and have captured some of their penalties. Locally, I've captured the local ones as well. So to replace that language, for willfully injuring or killing a tree, we're looking at a fine starting at $250, no more than $1,000, plus the cost of cure or cost of repair. Say if a vehicle left the roadway or somebody hacked off a limb, the cost to repair that, or the appraised value of the tree up to $5,000. So that would have been one of the proposals, which is pretty reasonable. In the case of an undeveloped right-of-way, or what some folks in public works call our paper streets, streets that are on paper but just haven't been developed yet. You'll notice these as, somebody with a side yard that, a road hasn't been built yet. They just happen to have volunteer trees that have grown up and, really didn't know it was right away. That penalty would be $250 plus the cost of replacement, so $700 to replace that tree either on site or somewhere else. We do have a challenge of what we call over adequacy, and anybody that's driven out, some of the abandoned right-of-ways and stuff like that, you'll notice, if you have one walnut tree, you have 30 of them. We call that stocking level, kind of over adequacy, and if you were to remove one, you wouldn't really notice it, but it is a violation. In the case of over adequacy, you pay the $250, and of course, and the replacement cost, which we would take and place somewhere more valuable within the township. Something would provide more benefit than planting it in a grove of 50. We'd put it out as a street tree. So that's just another thing we're proposing. And lastly, part 2B, for unknowingly without malice injuring a living tree, which is, something you hear is, I had no idea it was an accident or something like that. We're looking at $250 to $1,000, and again, a 2-inch replacement tree. So where I would either replace the one that was removed or find a more suitable location for it. So 2-inch caliper is pretty much our starting point, with the idea that we have, documentation and other portions of the code, whereas if we, any removal of any tree done by us, we have to replace with a 2-inch tree. So I'm just acknowledging that and sharing it across the code where I can, because that is a point where trees become structurally very good, and all the challenges have been worked out of them. So, if you look down at some of the costs, the penalties, what we're proposing is very much in line with what's going on with our neighbors. The borough is between $100 and $600 plus the appraised value. If it's not willful, it's $25 to $100. Patton Township, the first offense is $100, second offense $500. So we are actually still, I believe, with the replacement and everything like that, I think we're still more strict. But when, it gives us something to work with, it allows us to replace the trees, and people still love trees. They're genuinely heartfelt. They're, upset that they caused the unlawful removal of a tree, and I think it's just a good win-win for everybody. So again, we've worked this out through the Tree Commission, several drafts. We've all put our spin on this, and pretty comfortable with what we're bringing forward. So at this time, I'd like to request that the board takes action on proposed amendment. Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Stevens.
So some of this is this part of our designation as a tree city?
The fact that we have a tree ordinance meets one of the criteria for our Tree City USA accreditation. Yeah, there's about 4 items, and having a tree board, a tree commission, having a tree ordinance certainly meets that, yes.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yes, Mr. Heller.
I just have a couple questions. So, in the example given of the 8-inch diameter tree there, if I'm reading this correctly, nobody would be levied a $25,000 fine to replace, $1,000 per 25 of those going in. They would be at most a $5,000 fine.
Correct.
If I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, the idea would be, the fine imposed plus the appraisal value, where we actually put a dollar amount, and it's defendable. It's, council certified landscape appraisers, the actual booklet, spreadsheets. It's a calculation that's defensible based on the tree, the benefits it provides and everything like that. It's an actual number you can defend, and that's what the appraisal value would be. So, and, it takes into account, again, this is a beautiful linden tree in, on Red Willow Avenue in Fox Point neighborhood, just beautiful street tree, or is it, a tree growing out of the base of a garage in an alley? You can see it kind of balances, what the benefits the tree provides and everything like that. So that kind of goes into the appraisal.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about some of the trees along West Pine Grove Road that, with the expansion of the road, the widening and everything, we've had some discussions about that. But if I'm understanding this, and again, I appreciate it being brought to light, that these ordinances exist and are important. But if I'm reading it correctly, a homeowner that might have one of these trees that is technically in the right-of-way because it's so close to the road, but the branches, because it's so old, are over their property, they decide to trim them one day, they can be fined for that, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yes, that's always been the case, yes.
Okay.
Any unlawful pruning or stuff like that. And it's pretty common in some of our neighborhoods where we have a designated tree lawn area with the sidewalk, people walking, they'll snip,
Sure.
And that does occur. But again, in the case of, West Pine Grove Road, we get a lot of complaints with they're actually pear trees, Callery pear trees are actually growing into the siding. It's actually, PennDOT right of way. We have a permit to, we just got a permit to help maintain some of those trees, so actually go through and do some of that pruning. But yes, if they were township trees and they pruned them, a penalty could be assessed.
Okay. So I'm wondering if there's a public service announcement type of something we might want to consider in building awareness around this. Because I know let me ask, would it be one of those scenarios where they would call the township, potentially ask the question, and then you might make a stop to say, oh yes, I could trim that, or this is something that we cannot trim? How would something like that go down? Is there an on-site assessment?
Ultimately, if I get a phone call, I'm probably at your house that day or the next day and have a conversation with you about, what needs to be done, and I try to accommodate. If I'm driving there with my vehicle, I've got the tools in the back. A lot of times I could solve the problem right there. It's just when I pull into my driveway, it hits my car, I can cut the limb off, put it in the back, the problem's solved. I don't have to write a work order and involve a crew. A lot of stuff can be disarmed right then and there. Other times they call in, hey, I want to do this, want to make sure it's not a township tree. And, I get on our county database and find out that with the right of way, and I help determine, nope, that's all yours, or yes, it's ours. A lot of times, it's a site assessment, and just information sharing there. Or sometimes somebody has already done it, or I capture them in the act, and well, stop, I'll take it from here.
Okay.
And it's usually no one's making big 4-inch cuts. They're making just the when they're walking in their mailbox, they get hit, and it's just the annoyances. So, I do what I can to help solve them. But there is that information sharing. Once, twice a year, I put it in our digital newsletter. I did put it in our paper newsletter, going, hey, they are street trees. They are the responsibility of the township. Please reach out if you can't. And at the signature of every newsletter, I put, if you can't determine what it is, please let us know. you can't determine where the line is, we'll help determine it for you. I've had Ron Seibert, our township engineer, help me find pins and such in the ground, and then, you know, a lot of it's just communication. I've been funded to put together crews. At this point, anytime we visit a street tree, perform work on that, we'll be hanging door hangers on people's doors going, hey, we came and visited your street tree, we took care of the maintenance, please remember it's our tree. If you have a problem, we'll come back, not a big deal. So, fortunately, our trees are young enough right now that a lot of work can be performed from the ground relatively inexpensively. So it's really, really easy to do. But not a lot of people know. There are people, I just didn't know. I didn't know.
Sure.
What are you doing in my yard? I'm like, you know, you know, I've started, since I've gotten here, I've started what I call block pruning, where I'll start on, you know, Ottoman Drive, and I'll start on this tree and, you know, prune every single, you know, canopy lifting on every tree from the top to the bottom. You know, we pruned over 500 trees just in a house. So, very, yeah, upwards of 500, we'll say.
Wow. Well, and again, just in my closing remarks, I just want to say thank you, because I know being a property owner, where you actually paid a visit to my house because we had a tree on our property that was getting close to one of the light fixtures
Yes.
that is in the right of way. And thankfully, you offered to prune it. I was like, well, I'll grab my pruners, but you said, no, I've got the tools.
I got this, yeah. And
I appreciate that.
That's what it is. It just takes a few minutes to have a conversation, make people like their trees. Like, I could go back to my office, I could send you a letter, we can mail it, you'd get upset, and what's this, and try to decipher. It's like, tell you what, I've got the tool in my car, and let me deal with it, and we'll both be happy. So it's just disarming those, and it's just, I wish I could do it 19,200 times for every resident, but I can't.
Well, I appreciate it, so
No,
thank
thank
you.
you, thank you.
Any other questions for the arborist?
Citizen request portal does have a tree
Yes, it
entry,
does.
right, when, in the drop down, so anybody that's got a problem with the tree or request, they can put it in there and you'll address it.
Absolutely, yeah, and we've
Thank you,
had a
sir.
lot of success with it. It's just, the call-ins are the big ones.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Question I would have, so if somebody was to be cited, does the township have a system in place to work with that resident to maybe making payments if they can't necessarily afford the?
Recommendations that have come from the urban forester and the tree commission, and we have dealt with, I believe, 2 since I've been appointed manager, and we have not administered fees as referenced in his presentation. We have found alternative options, but to be in compliance with our ordinance, our preference is that we amend the ordinance to ensure that we are equitably applying the ordinance in practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I just want to thank you for your service to our community. I have had many encounters with residents who have positively shared their experiences working with you, and I've also had a lot of residents that are very cognizant of proper tree care and have approached me like, hey, I want to take care of this, but I don't know if this is a township tree or how to take care of it. And it's like, call the township. We have an arborist. They can help you. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, great, thank you. They're trees, they're great. And this is a great place to work, so it's a great fit for me, so thank you.
Yeah, I too have gotten a lot of compliments from neighbors who have worked with you, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
There's no further questions. We haven't yet taken a motion, so I would entertain a motion.
I move to authorize advertising a public hearing on the amendment to chapter 25 trees, section 110.
Mrs. Patty, in a second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. All right, we did have item 5 on the agenda. Oh, yes, thank you, Larry. Did have item 5 on the agenda, but it was brought to my attention due to an unforeseen circumstance. It appears we won't be able to present this item tonight, so subject to the call of the chair, we will move that item to another meeting and go to item 7.6, the 3610 West College Avenue Stack and Store Final Land Development Plan And I will,
Small point of order.
yes,
We knew this before the meeting started?
it was partway through the meeting, I was notified.
Okay.
We were to have a guest in attendance, but they were unable
Okay.
to make it, so, yeah, to
Copy
better.
that. All right,
Yeah.
very good. I guess at some point, well, yeah, we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, basically got to move it to another meeting, so. Going back to item 7.6, I will recognize the Planning and Zoning Director.
3610 West College Avenue, Stack and Store, final land development plan. They've been through a series of approvals to get to this point. Provided in the agenda is your, the final plan. It's dated December 1st, 2024. It's zoned general commercial and corridor overlay. It's 84,000 square feet, indoor climate-controlled self-storage facility, 479 storage units, 3,000 square feet of outdoor storage, associated driveway, parking, sidewalks, utilities, stormwater management improvements. That also includes sorry, I lost my place. But basically sidewalks, curbs, the sidewalk will also go through to the front door. And like say a series of other items. And again, this is before you for final approval. You'll note that there are some conditions. The notable one is the finalize the surety estimate per the township engineers, and that is specifically for sidewalks and curbs to ensure that they will actually be built. We have the community planner here, and I think we just lost the engineer, or he's online. And that's all.
Okay. I was gonna say, if we want, we can take questions or entertain a motion and then have a discussion. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the 3610 West College Avenue Stack and Store Final Land Development Plan. Ms. Omari.
Do we have a second?
This is Patty, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, I will, voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. All right. Land development plan has been approved. Next up, before I get to communications from the board, if there was no objections, I did want to recall item 5.3A, the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority report. I do notice our representative is in attendance, and I wanted to give him an opportunity if he had anything he wanted to share with the board, and we can maybe forward, if we wanted to forward any of our comments that we had from earlier to him, so. Happy to go up. Yep, feel free to go up.
My apologies, I put this meeting at 7 o'clock on my calendar, which I'm like, am I misremembering when these meetings started, or did they get moved up? I don't.
We're just not that fast.
One of the two. But anyway, so my apologies for not being here in order of the agenda. You saw my report. I do not have a ton of comments to add on that. I will say that I think one of the key issues that continues to come up in our conversations is one, the authority of the authority, let's put it that way, in terms of decision-making that affects Parks and Recreation and how decisions are made and the authority's role in those decisions. Had a good conversation this last meeting as we were talking about the bathroom buildings in particular. I again stressed what I stressed even when I was a member of the supervisor. I let them know that we as a township are deeply concerned about the costs of the parks, particularly with other large capital projects we know are coming up, i.e. the boardwalk for Millbrook Marsh. And so that the preference, from my point of view, and I think I'm representing you all in this, is for a less expensive option in dealing with that bathroom building. I think we were not asked to vote on anything during our meeting. It was simply to check in and get our opinion, and that led to a conversation of, so who's making the decision first about what's going to happen. Ultimately, that led to a conversation of our sort of decision-making ability, and essentially it comes back to what the authority is charged to do. And our main responsibility is to be the ones responsible for taking out any loans, right? That's one of the major functions of the authority. And so if the COG decided that they wanted to fund something and we did not agree and it required a loan, the authority could say no. But otherwise, it is up to the COG and you all with your colleagues, because you are the ones who set the budget to make those decisions. That was positive, actually, from my point of view in terms of that. I know there have been some other concerns that you had, including the makeup of the Millbrook Marsh Advisory Board. We did have a conversation about that. I even made a motion during the meeting to refer the makeup of that committee to the Parks Capital Committee, because I was like, well, if this is an advisory board for a facility, should not the COG have some input into this? The motion was not even seconded, so I'm apparently the only one who had a concern with the makeup of the Millbrook Marsh Advisory Board in that meeting. Just wanted to let you all know that it did not escape my notice that I even asked about why there are certain townships, in this case, the borough has a representative, and College Township has a slot on the advisory board, but why not others? Apparently, the borough slot has been empty for many, many years. Came out during that conversation as well. So, wanted to follow up on that as well. Happy to have. I know you probably have comments, and I will read them in the minutes. So they'll come to me. But I'm here if you have any questions for me that I can try to answer live. I'm happy to do that.
I was telling them that I watched the meeting, and thank you so much for your questions and the representation there on the board. I was confused about the initial motion of referring the funding of the Hess bathrooms and the boardwalk to the Parks Capital Committee, because later on in the meeting, it was determined that while we're meeting jointly, the Parks Capital Committee doesn't actually set the agenda, and everything will just be discussion items only. So I was confused by how we could make any meaningful plan for funding those things when we can't do that. But that is our chair's, I guess, problem to figure out how to get those on there.
I'll respond to that just briefly, in that those things happened in that order. I don't think when we made the referral that at least we were aware that the only meetings you were going to be having were the joint meetings with the authority. That only came up, and I think that was a later discussion. It was a later discussion item in talking about how the meetings were going to align and what was going to happen during them.
Yeah. It was strange. And then my only other comment was this. There had been discussion, and I'm not sure if it had been at the level of the authority, but I know they've been involved in discussions about a foundation, and was wondering if there were any meaningful steps taken towards establishing a Parks Foundation, because I think that's the one thing we all agree on, is that we need money.
No, that has not been a topic of conversation.
Thank you. Sorry. In that meeting, there was the other interesting discussion that I saw was about the wellhead at Oak Hall. And so, again, that's one of those projects that I think will come forward is about paving. So in addition, so speaking of large ticket items, in addition to the Hess bathrooms and the boardwalk, it would seem to me that the paving of Oak Hall parking lot is going to be something that should also be sort of talked about. And then when they talked about the storage of chemicals, and I was wondering, Don't we have a wellhead at Whitehall Road Regional Park? Does it have that same, I mean, I don't know, if James, do you know that?
Get information. We do have wellheads here in Ferguson Township and where they're situated and those
Yeah, because
concerns.
it was really clear about DEP said you couldn't store chemicals in this. It expanded area around the wellhead.
Yeah, and it just depends on what, like, there's different, I don't wanna say levels, but there's different categories of wellheads, and depending on like and I don't wanna get too far in the depth of the conversation, cause I'm certain that I won't have all of the, factual references correct.
Right.
But there are different, and I think it's levels, let's go with levels or categories, but it will determine ultimately like how far, development or what can be situated within a certain proximity of that wellhead. But we can certainly get more information if you're looking for that as it
Yeah, I was
relates to
just
what's in
curious.
Ferguson
It
Township.
was something that they made a point about in the meeting.
Yeah, one of the things I did learn from that presentation is that the radius depends on the amount of water that you're trying to actually pump into the system, right? So how much water is that pump drawing?
And that's what determines that category or level.
Yeah, and determines even the circle of exclusion. And so apparently, because of where this particular wellhead is situated, that's what determined what its capacity would be, was that circle they had to draw to keep it away from the sewer lines coming out of the bathroom building there and the other little storage shed down in the corner of the parking lot. But yes, I'm always keen when these sorts of things come up where there clearly are capital costs, to remind the rest of my authority members about Ferguson Township's feelings about the cost of those things, given that we cover the largest share of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and appreciate your advocacy for us there. Any other, Ms. Strickland?
Yeah, so thank you, as you said, for contributing that. And then the thing I'd mentioned earlier was, just a question about the process of the Hess bathroom discussion and when we should be discussing that here. So I guess that's something, to consider as it, I guess, works its way back through committees so that we can, have the most up-to-date information and so that our different representatives know what our thoughts are. So I guess that's a question about when we should be discussing that. And then I'd be supportive, I think that was a great comment and question about the foundation. So I'd be supportive of, you bringing that up as a discussion topic and trying to move that forward in some way, so.
I'm happy to do that. I think, again, this falls into the gap, and maybe maybe one of our joint meetings with Parks Capital Committee would be an ideal time to have that conversation, because I feel like right now there is, like many things in our regional park system, is this an authority thing to do, or is this a Parks Capital Committee thing to do? Or is it a both of us thing to do? So I think that would be good.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I will have to say that was my first meeting with the new COG executive director in attendance, and he was very helpful, I will say, in that particular meeting. So I have some optimism for us figuring out the issues that have made it harder, at least to make faster progress. It's things related to the regional parks.
That's great.
I will come back from, just to you all from the authority. The authority is very antsy to open Whitehall. And the thing that was brought up is that, the work is done. We're just now, the authority's in the stages of finishing the essentially planning process with our township. And so that's what we were told. The authority members were like, how long is it going to take? And no clear answer was given. There's just stuff that's outstanding. And so the COG executive director could not, and the director of Parks could not give us a date, so I don't have any questions there, but just to say, the authority is very anxious to set a date for opening, and I know that we are a part of that, let's just say. No, I don't want to put any pressure on anybody, but.
I'm happy to share, actually. I'm not sure exactly when that meeting was. I don't recall. I don't have that in front of me. But yes, the as-built for the stormwater were staff, Ferguson Township staff was awaiting to receive that. And outside of a few small punch list items, it's the as-built stormwater plan that we needed from, it's called the acronym is MAP, minor alteration plan. And with that is the as-built stormwater plan. So we received that on January 30th, and so it's now being reviewed by NTM, and as soon as that review is complete, and assuming it's been submitted in accordance to the comments, the latest comments that were provided, we very well could have occupancy permit issued in the very near future. But you are correct in that most of us are really reserved to not give a date as to when we will open that, because every time we think we are within a week or a few weeks, we find that we actually still are waiting for information from Stahl, Schaefer, and or CRPR for staff to review and issue a final review for a response. But I do believe we are absolutely closer than we've ever been. And so now that that's under review, I'm optimistic for a date in the near future. That's what I'll say. I was just talking to the executive director, Ben Estelle, today, and I talked to the stormwater engineer to confirm that he did receive the requested information, and our township engineer confirmed it was received and forwarded over to NTM for review.
Great. Anyone else? Again, thank you, Corey. And
good to see you all.
thank you. So, moving on with item 8, any communications to the board? Yes, Mr. Heller.
I had communication related to ADUs, and I also just want to say thank you to staff for including the April 1 Bergmeyer Hauling changeover, and just if we could just keep that on calendar items going forward until April 1st, that would be appreciated. So, thank you. Yes.
Actually, speaking of that, your sustainability, when will they actually be delivering the new trash cans to residents? Do you know?
You didn't get one already? I'm kidding. I don't know. I will take that back. I know we've had a light discussion about it,
Okay.
but I will follow up with that.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yes, do follow it. Don't kick the can down the road. Just follow up.
Oh, God. Chairman.
Wow.
Motion to adjourn.
Any other communications to the board? I had one on Lunar New Year, and thanks to staff, we did post some information on our website acknowledging and recognizing Lunar New Year. Also had communication regarding accessory dwelling units and the West College neighborhood, and then also had a communication regarding ordinance alignment with the other ordinances within the center region. So there's no other communications. Calendar items, I will just note that the township offices will be closed for President's Day on February 17th. There is a Public Works open house for February 18th from 3 to 5. So, of course, our guests that were here from earlier from the Scout Troop, I think they might be interested in that one, being able to see all the trucks and stuff. So do mark that on your calendars. And then, yes, on April 1, we'll be transitioning over to Bergmeyer Hauling for residential refuse collection. I do encourage people to go to our website, the COG website. We did also put forward in the COG budget an extra staff resource. So if anyone has any questions or, notices anything that might seem off when we launch on April 1st, there will be people to assist on a customer service side. So feel free to ask any questions. I know there has been some people asking questions as we're getting closer to that date. So With that, I apologize for my pun from earlier. I can take the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we are adjourned.